Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Football Podcast. It is me, Joey P., Joe Pisapia, that is Kyle Yates, and Dan Harris. And, of course, it's you, and it's Week 8 in the waiver wire. That's right, we're here already in Week 8. My apocalypse is almost gone. We're done. We're recording this Monday afternoon. So hopefully now you're getting all your players back, and hopefully you got a W, but just in case you didn't, or if you lost some more players, hopefully we're going to be here today to help you find some more guys to put onto your teams. And Dan Harris, I don't know what kind of bet you lost to be here with me today. I haven't seen you in a while, but you're here on a Monday after Joe Burrow had perhaps the performance of his career going into Baltimore and winning, after Kyle Pitts has back-to-back 100-yard reception games, and after your Jets lost 54-13 against my Patriots. So I don't know what sort of bet you lost or why the fantasy football gods hate you so much. But alas, you're here today. So you're allowed to ask out if you want at any given time of the show.
I like how professional you are as a host, Joe,
Yes.
and you are pretending like we didn't just do this entire thing. I have recorded a half of a Waiver Wire podcast, and then my internet ruined everything. So you are a superstar. I'm the worst. I would ask out because I'm sure you guys hate me right now. It's my bad. But everything they say, you can rest assured I know exactly what they're going to say. It's like weird. I've been to the future. Thank you, Joe, for being a professional, but I will ruin it by saying we recorded this entire half of the podcast, and I've just completely ruined it. So, my bad.
Dan Harris, ruining podcasts since 2020, right, Yates? I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Also, Yates, I'm going to check in with you, too. Justin Fields looked very unhappy. All that elation.
We avoided that on the first.
We did, but you know what? Dan Harris said was no going back. I can't go back to the old show, the old open. So now I'm going to live in the now. And that was one thing that was on my mind. I didn't get to ask you the first take of this show. So in take number 2, I'm going to ask you, all that elation, all that joy, has it faded away? Are you okay today after the Justin Fields and Bears performance against the Bucs?
Oh, man, that was rough. I'm going to be honest, I did not watch all of that game because I could not stomach it physically. Like, every time that it came up on Red Zone and it was like another Justin Fields sack fumble or interception, I was like, sounds about right. Sounds about right. I was texting Trevor Sikkema, former co-host on the Dynasty podcast, throughout that he's a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and so he and I were just messaging, and I was like, after the first drive from Tampa Bay, I was like, you're about to put 50 up on us. Like, 100% is about to happen. Yeah, it was rough.
All right. Well, hopefully things are going to turn around for everybody here, and like I said, we're getting players back. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. Now, the quality of some of the players out there in the waiver wire in Week 8, that could be just a little bit in question, but we're going to try to do our best and tell you which guys you want to add, and who knows, there might be some people, because of roster crunches last week, that might be floating around the waiver wire that you might not realize that are out there as a pleasant surprise, so pay attention to that as well. There might be a name or two we mentioned here on the podcast to look for, and of course, we're getting closer and closer to the trade deadline for the NFL, so there might be a couple guys to perhaps pick up and stash over the next few days and see kind of what happens. But before we kick things off here officially, I want to remind everybody once again, we got a good giveaway going on at fantasypros.com/contest. Only a few days left to get that Justin Jefferson autographed helmet. It is glorious, purple, beautiful, and of course, Justin Jefferson having another fantastic season. The autograph is just simply fantastic. It looked really good on your head. You could wear it on your head and run around and say, look at my Justin Jefferson autographed helmet. I got this from my friends at Fantasy Pros and Pristine Auction. But the only way to get involved is to go and leave a review of the show on Apple Podcasts or CastBox. Go to fantasypros.com/contest, and don't forget, get your 3x entry by subscribing to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasypros, because when you subscribe there, you get 3 times the entries into the contest, which is going to be announced on Halloween, where I can only assume Dan's going to be wearing his Woody costume yet again, but yet he makes all of us get different costumes every year. I don't know what that's all about. Also, don't forget, this entire show is powered by the Waiver Assistant in my playbook at fantasypros.com/myplaybook. It'll display all the ad drop scenarios that will improve your roster, all the available players, and how they can potentially improve your team and by how much, not to mention also some of the guys floating around there that could help some other teams that you might be playing against, including your weak opponent. So you might be able to pick up a player and kind of help yourself by not letting them get that guy. But of course, you can't get all that information unless you get the Waiver Assistant, and you can't get the Waiver Assistant unless you get My Playbook. So head over to fantasypros.com/myplaybook and make sure you start using that Waiver Assistant. So boys, Let's kick things off here with the running backs, and it seems like an easy board this week, maybe a bit top-heavy, but Dan Harris, let's start with you. Who is your number one waiver wire add at the running back position this week, and how much you want to spend?
It is Kenneth Gainwell. I assume it's going to be Kenneth Gainwell for everyone. Now, right before we started recording this podcast, right in the middle of our former podcast.
And which time?
Yes, exactly. Rappaport reported that it is a sprained ankle that looks worse than it is and blah, blah, blah. An update that basically gave us very, very little information. I'm still expecting Kenneth Gainwell to be the starting running back, probably, at least on the high end of the share there. For the Eagles next week, I expect Miles Sanders to be out for at least a week. And again, they get the Lions. After that, it's the Chargers. It's a nice little schedule here coming up. You're going to see Boston Scott factor in, as you saw him factor into this most recent game. But still, a guy like Gainwell right now is a guy I think that any fantasy manager that has any remote issue at running back, or who's playing anyone who has any remote issue at running back in the next week or two, needs to add Gainwell. It's a 25% of your fab budget. That is worth it for me personally to go after this, because I think Gainwell is going to have a ton of value here the next 2 weeks.
Well, especially in PPR leagues, because just like you saw on Sunday, if he catches 4 balls for 40, there's 8 points right there before you even add a touchdown or any other carries. We've talked about the schedule of Miles Sanders that was coming up, and depending on how long he is out, we don't know. He could even be back later this week. We're still in that period of time where we're unsure, but the schedule is good for whatever Eagles running back is out there next, because you got Detroit, then the Chargers, Denver, New Orleans, then the Giants and Jets before their bye week in 14. So how aggressive do you want to be on Gainwell, Yates? Because I know he's your number one ranked guy as well this week.
Yeah, Gainwell definitely is number one for me, just because when you look at the rest of this list and ask yourself, okay, which of these guys is going to step into a larger role, a larger guaranteed role, I think Gainwell is pretty much the clear answer, because Sanders is the main guy out. Now, we had Josh Jacobs suffer an injury this past week as well, but they are out on bye. Otherwise, like a guy like Peyton Barber, Kenyon Drake, if he was available, would jump to the top of the list. But Miles Sanders is the main guy here who is going to miss most likely this next week. The week after is a question mark. So Kenneth Gainwell for me is just a 10% fab bid. He's a guy that I am looking to add if I have a need at the running back position, but I'm not going to be super aggressive here, because I don't think that he has a long-term value, right? I think once we see Miles Sanders come back from this ankle sprain, then it's going to be something where we move back into the territory of, am I ever really going to feel comfortable playing Kenneth Gainwell? And for me, the answer is no. So he is a 10% fab bid for me, someone that I am looking to pick up, but I'm not going to overspend to acquire him.
All right, fair enough. So when it comes to the number 2 then, are you adding Boston Scott into that mix right after, or are you pivoting to just somebody altogether?
It's going to be interesting here with Philadelphia and what they do, because Jordan Howard is on their practice squad. And we saw Boston Scott step into, like you guys alluded to on the previous version of this podcast, where he
someday that'll be released, by the way, on the director's cut. It's going to be so good. And then we're going to do commentary where Dan, myself, and you all sit there and talk about, remember when this happened and that was really funny, but no one ever got to hear it. It's going to all be released later in January, by the way. So everyone subscribe to the YouTube channel for when that comes out.
Yeah, so Boston Scott stepped into that first and second down workload, which is not what he's not built for. He's not built to do that. And they do have Jordan Howard here on the practice squad. So I do expect where we could see Jordan Howard called up to the active roster this week. Kenneth Gainwell stays kind of in his role. He'll see an uptick in usage. But then Boston Scott would move back to this. Maybe he takes some of the passing down work away from Kenneth Gainwell, but he might just move right back to special teams. So Boston Scott currently is at number 2, but that's just because you look at the other options. It's like Rashaad Penny. We don't know what to expect out of him. We haven't seen that game here tonight. Samaje Perine, we kind of know that he's just a complimentary piece. He got a ton of work this past week because of Cincinnati being up so big over Baltimore. And then you Brandon Bolden, Marlon Mack, J.J. Taylor, like a bunch of other uninspiring names. So currently Boston Scott is at number 2, but I am not looking to. He is just a desperation pickup at this point.
All right, so deeper leagues, standard leagues, maybe you try to look for Boston Scott as well. Again, this is all very dependent upon how much time Miles Sanders is going to miss. We had a very ambiguous tweet a few moments ago about there's an ankle and it's sprained, and it could be better than maybe we thought it was, not as bad as it was, maybe better. It was terrible. I don't know why they even bothered tweeting it. It was not helpful whatsoever. Dan Harris, who is your number 2 on the waiver wire this week at running back?
Yeah, the one thing I'm going to say about that tweet, by the way, is I remember a very similar tweet with Saquon Barkley, who is not going to come back, by the way, this week either. So I don't think so. He's going to be the very little minor ankle sprain. We'll see what he can do. P.S. You're going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. So that is what I'm actually expecting here with Sanders. For number 2, right now, again, it's Monday afternoon, a little later than it was when I first said this about a half hour ago. But it's Rashaad Penny, who we are. I'm sorry, Joe. I know you're so professional. You're doing a great job. I'm sorry I pulled the curtain back.
No, it's okay.
Because I don't care. Also, by the way, I'll say this. Because we are so delayed, Joe, you have another obligation.
No, it's fine. We've got plenty of time. We're going to go all the way till 3:15, 3:20.
If you've got to go, you go. I have formerly a host
Look,
of this show.
Look, we started this show, and I believe at some point in time, daylight savings happened. And I either gained or lost an hour of my life. I have no idea which.
All right. So for right now, for Monday afternoon, before we see what happens tonight, I will pick up Rashaad Penny, number 2, because it is possible, again, that Collins is not fully recovered. He was obviously a little questionable coming in, had a good week of practice, whatever. Penny's coming back. Full go. I fully believe Pete Carroll every time he's optimistic on any player, of course, because he never lies whatsoever. Then after that, it's Boston Scott. Then after that, it goes like Marlon Mack, who, again, could be traded. So he is somebody who I want to pick up now before that happens to see if he gets a bigger role. And then Samaje Perine, no interest whatsoever in the Patriots running backs at all. Peyton Barber, again, Josh Jacobs is supposed to be fine. And Barber, again, the Raiders are on a bye right now. So for me, it is Gainwell with a bullet. It is then a big drop down to essentially Rashaad Penny and Boston Scott. Then a further drop down to Marlon Mack and Samaje Perine.
Yeah, I would agree with that logic. It's Gainwell for me as well. And, of course, dependent upon your needs at the running back position, I would be investing either heavily or even just lightly in Gainwell just to have him if perchance Miles Sanders does miss a few weeks here, because the schedule is favorable here in at least these next 2 weeks in the short term. And I would also say this, I would still be buying Miles Sanders in the off chance you get him for next to nothing, because the Miles Sanders owner is probably very frustrated with his performance, very frustrated that it seemed to be going in a better direction, and now he's hurt. That is the absolute worst thing. There's desperation. Smell it. Go make a trade offer right now for Miles Sanders if you can, because you might get an extraordinarily buy low. And just like Joe Mixon, who I don't remember if it was the first, second, third, or fourth time we started this pod, but Dan made a point about, remember Mixon's injury, and then it actually led to him playing limited, but then he was back the following week at full strength. So it also could be something like that situation as well. I, for one, am not chasing any of the Patriots. The Rhamondre Stevenson situation was mind-blowing, came out of nowhere. J.J. Taylor, the little pass-catching back, was the goal line back yesterday. And I know it was late in the game, and I get that, and they were just kind of using him, but I am not chasing Brandon Bolden. I am not chasing J.J. Taylor. I'm probably not even chasing Rhamondre Stevenson, who's probably going to hit the waiver wire with a giant thud this week after what just happened. But Yates, Rashaad Penny, I know he hasn't played yet, but once again, range of outcomes. So give me because you are the Rashaad Penny whisperer after all, although he doesn't speak to you apparently. I want to know, in your opinion, if Penny does not play, would you still be making any sort of play to add him to a roster as insurance?
Again, it depends on my need at the running back position. Okay. If I am absolutely desperate, which you shouldn't be because we only got 2 teams on bye this upcoming week, but Rashaad Penny gets to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars next week. So I think all indications are that he is going to be active for tonight. Now it's just a matter of what's the workload, right? If he gets 8 to 10 carries in this one, then I will feel very comfortable about picking him up if I am desperate. But otherwise, he's just someone that, it's a 5% fab bid, someone that I'm just adding just to see what happens here. But I'm not going super crazy and adding him just because it's Rashaad Penny and the opportunity might be there.
Yeah, it's not a great waiver wire for running backs. That's the story.
Or generally, by the way.
Or generally, which is good.
Hey, by the way,
because
I want to make one point, Joe, if I can. Just on why I'm a little more aggressive right now in Gainwell is because I feel like we are now in week 8. You have a lot of teams that are just basically like, my season's done. I'm 2-5. I'm not going to compete and stuff like that, and are going to be.
So are the Eagles. Dan.
No, I mean not with super fancy superstar Jalen Hurts under center. So I think in the end that I think that realistically you're gonna have a lot of your league here starting to check out, and because of that, I think you can be a little more aggressive than you otherwise would be, because I think the people I'm a little more I'm hesitant in the beginning because you got everybody still involved and stuff like that. But now that everybody's kind of gonna start checking out, you're gonna have probably a third of your league just kind of out of it. I feel like you can be a little more aggressive because you're not going to need as much fab later on in the season when you've only got 3, maybe 4 teams who really care.
Yeah, that is fair. And remember, Gainwell's the guy that this regime went after, right? This coaching staff seemed to want, and that's who they drafted. So let's see what kind of usage he gets here, because you had him in limited usage in the first half of the season. All right, before we move on to wide receivers, as you could tell, NFL stadiums are packed again this season. NFL tickets are available again, but the thing is, they can also be available to you without ridiculous service fees, and that is no longer a fantasy. That is reality, my friends. TickPick is the place where it all can happen. That's right. TickPick is the original no-fee ticket site, and they are teaming up with Zip, the new buy now, pay later service provider, to give away 5 huge season ticket packages for the 2022 NFL season. You'll have 5 chances to win 2022 season tickets to your favorite NFL team, with a drawing every single month from now until February. Each package is valued at $3,000, and you can enter today by going to tickpick.com/pros. Again, that's tickpick.com/pros, tickpick.com/pros. And I'm pretty sure that Dan just restarted the whole podcast again just to make sure that I spelled that right and did not trip up on it. But I didn't, because as Dan said, I am a professional at the end of the day. Wide receivers! Maybe, hopefully, things will get better here. Yates, let's kick things off here with you. Who's your wide receiver 1 and how much you want to spend here in Week 8 in the waiver wire?
For me, you look at the top 3 of this wide receiver list, and you can go, okay, I can add these guys. That sounds great. And then once you get past that, you're like, sure, I can add them, right? Like, it's an underwhelming group once you get outside the top 3. For me, at the top, it is Laviska Shenault, the wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Coming off of their bye the week before that, he had 10 targets. He was heavily involved in this offense. Now, we did see Jamal Agnew continue to be involved in this offense, which has me a little bit concerned about the consistency with Laviska Shenault. But as we look at this upcoming week, and if I am in need of a wide receiver, Jacksonville gets to take on Seattle and the secondary there. So I think Laviska Shenault is a perfect option to pick up and just say, I think I'm going to rank him as a flex option next week. That's kind of be the way that I view this is, who am I going to rank the highest in my weekly rankings next week? And then we'll move from there. Laviska Shenault is probably going to be at the top of the list. So he is someone that 8% of my fab, someone that I'm not going at super high in my fab percentage there and going crazy with him. But Laviska Shenault, you definitely can pick him up because I think that he's has the highest upside.
Shenault is definitely one of those guys who might be floating around there after this past week. A lot of roster crunches, a lot of decent talent, especially at the wide receiver position, that probably just got jettisoned. They're on a bye, they can't help me. Maybe the offense isn't going well. DJ Chark also, Chark was officially out now for the year. Not that we didn't think he was earlier when it all happened, but thank goodness we finally got clarity a couple weeks later. Dan Harris, when it comes to wide receivers, who do you want to go ahead and spend your fab on this week?
First of all, I really like when the news comes across of things that the 3 of us had all been like, yeah, we know that. Thank you very much, with the DJ Chark being out for the year. Oh, really? That's good. This is brand new information. So for me, it's not Laviska Shenault, who I think is fine, is in my top 3 as well. But it is Rashod Bateman, and I get the fact that he's on a bye this coming week, and so that's fine if you want to say no. But I've been on this podcast many, many times on the Waiver Wire one, and my philosophy on wide receivers is pretty clear. For the most part, I am not looking at a 1-week guy that I can make sure I add, and I understand Shenault is more than that, but I look much more long-term with wide receivers. Running backs, give me the guy who's going to help me right now. The guy who's going to help me more long-term at wide receiver is Rashod Bateman. There are 3 people getting targets on the Ravens. It is Hollywood Brown, it is Rashod Bateman, and it is Mark Andrews. And unlike previous years, there are more targets to go around because the running back is really not working. It's not 25 pass attempts per game anymore. It's not 27 pass attempts per game anymore. It is 32 pass attempts per game. There are plenty of targets out there. Bateman looks great. I will take the L on it because I was very much poo-pooing him for a little while. Not his talent, just how long it would take him to get involved in this offense. He is involved right now. He's on a bye, I get it. But again, we talked about it. 2 teams on bye next week. You don't need a Laviska Shenault. I mean, you said it. Yates are going to rank Shenault probably as a flex. I'll have him in my 40s. There are a million guys I probably have in my roster who I'll start over him. So for me, I will target Bateman overall, and I think he's like a must-add type wide receiver. How is he rostered in fewer than 25% of leagues? I don't understand. He's got to be added immediately. So for me, I mean, you probably don't need it because he's on a bye, so people aren't going to be targeting him. But 15% of my fab budget, I'm more than willing to go after this guy.
I love Bateman, but we've been talking about Bateman on this show for weeks now, so you probably could add him for $1.
And Gainwell, Joe, you've been pounding the Gainwell desk.
Gainwell was my week 1 first guy to add. I was like, let's go. Add Gainwell. It's going to happen eventually. We'll see how much. And look, he's had a couple moments, but they really haven't they haven't committed to the run at all or to the running back position at all. So that's a major failure from the organization for the coaching. But I have Laviska Shenault at 1 myself. I just like the matchup against Seattle, and I do think that there's certainly more upside there with some other guys. Bateman, despite the bye for me, is right there as well. He's actually my 3, but my 2 is Michael Gallup, who, once again, that's another guy who hasn't played in a while, might be floating around there. If you go to sort your league by just fantasy points, Michael Gallup ain't going to show up very high. He might not even show up on page 1 because he hasn't played in forever. So there's strange things, and there's little moments like that in some leagues where there's opportunity, so be aggressive there. And in terms of spend here, I'm with the guys. Like, I'm not going over necessarily $10 for any of these guys. Bateman, maybe if you want to spend a little more because you like where things are going, because you like that the Ravens offense is starting to click a little bit, throwing the football. Hollywood Brown, ever since that one bad game in Detroit, has really caught pretty much everything else that's been thrown at him, which has been outstanding. Andrews is back. That's freed up a lot of single coverage for Rashod Bateman. That's a very important thing going forward. I think Bateman already seems to have a good rapport with Jackson. I think that's something that's going to continue to move on. Yates, how do you rank the rest of your wide receivers in this group this week?
Yeah, I've got Michael Gallup at 2. And Gallup, I think, is definitely worth an add. However, I have concern here about what exactly this offense is going to look like when we do have Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Gallup all healthy and playing at the same time. In previous seasons, we were able to say, or last year, we were able to say, you can start all 3 of these guys. Gallup is kind of a little bit lower down the totem pole, but he's going to provide massive upside because of how much Dallas was throwing the ball. They're not throwing the ball as much as they were last year with the defense taking the step forward that they have. They're committing to the run game. So I think Gallup is still worth an add. My concern here is that he's going to be kind of in this low end flex territory week in and week out. And he actually might impact the other receivers a little bit more than I would hope, right? I think that we could see the target volume come down even further for guys like CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. So I do think that Gallup is worth an add. It's worth seeing what happens here with this offense. He's at number 2 for me. But then, guys, Russell Gage is at number 3. And Russell Gage is someone where I think that we can add him now because coming into the week, I had someone ask about Russell Gage. I was like, I don't even know what to expect out of him. Like, I have no idea what to expect out of this Atlanta offense, but he came in, and not only was he filling the role of, like, short area targets underneath, but he was actually used deep downfield as well. It's kind of the same thing as Cordero Patterson. It's like, we're using Cordero Patterson deep downfield apparently now. We're using Russell Gage deep downfield as well. So I think he is someone that is worth an add here because Atlanta, with the state of their defense, they're continuously going to be throwing the ball. And they're not going to run the ball with Mike Davis apparently, so they're going to throw the ball a ton. And I think there's opportunity for Russell Gage. So he's someone that I do think is worth a pickup. But again, 5%.
I'd add him in my guillotine league this week and just hope for the best because that's how bad things were. And I got a touchdown from him and Jalen Reagor. So that's how weird week 7 was, everybody. Just to put in perspective, Russell Gage and Jalen Reagor scoring touchdowns. Dan, I want to get your thoughts on Michael Gallup for a second, too. Yeah. What is the ripple effect there when Gallup comes back into the offense? Because he's certainly the third guy, I would imagine, kind of in that wide receiver tier. Does this actually help the other guys in a weird way, or does it just kind of make it a little bit muddier for Cooper and for Lamb, in your opinion?
Great question, Joe. I think realistically, I know that I've heard a lot of people say that Amari Cooper is, even though he hasn't been doing that great, is a sell high because of, what we're going to see now. Michael Gallup's going to come back, and who knows what that's going to be. I don't know whether or not it helps or hurts CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper. I mean, I don't really think it hurts them. I think it hurts Dalton Schultz, and I think the reason why is what's been happening right now. First of all, Gallup is a guy who I was very excited about in draft season. I was constantly recommending him as sort of your late round guy you can get. And again, the big thing is the preseason usage is they were mixing and matching where they were lining all these guys up, right? I mean, that's what we saw Gallup out of the slot a lot. That's really a valuable place. And yes, I realize that they're running the ball a little bit more. But the bottom line is that Dallas, after Gallup got injured, they just started running 12 personnel a ton, like way more than they usually do. And I get that you have Dalton Schultz emerging and Blake Jarwin still there, but they're not going to do this at 33% of the time once Michael Gallup is back. I mean, they have consistently been a team that runs a lot of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers on the field. So for me, I think maybe it's not broke, so don't fix it. Their offense looks great, of course. But I still think that when you've got this, you're going to see a lot more of Blake Jarwin getting phased out a little bit, fewer 2 tight end sets, fewer more 11 personnel here with all 3 receivers on the field. So I actually think that for the most part, I don't actually expect it to have a big impact on Gallup on CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper. I think the biggest loser is going to be Dalton Schultz because I do expect them to change the personnel that they run. So that's just personally how I am viewing it. Gallup is also my number 2 pickup of the week. Shenault 3, but again, they're all right there.
The thing that you touched on there that I think is most important is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's part of me that wonders too. I believe Gallup is a free agent after this year, if memory serves. So why wouldn't he be a trade target for a team? Like, you're the Cowboys. You really don't need Michael Gallup right now. I just kind of wonder if it's more useful to jettison him, get some more draft picks, and turn it over there because you have Cooper, you have Lamb, you have this Dalton Schultz emergence, you have the running backs playing well. Cowboys look really good. Like, I don't know if you want to change what you're doing necessarily. It's nice to be able to, but even guys like Cedric Wilson have stepped into that void at times. You've had other wide receivers step up and been fine in the moments when they've been called upon.
Yeah, I think really, I don't think they're going to trade him because, I mean, for Amari Cooper has basically been battling through some sort of injury the entire year, right? He got started, he had the foot ankle thing, then he had the ribs and stuff like that. God forbid CeeDee Lamb goes down with a bad injury. Like, you need Gallup to be able to step into that role. So trading him as just a general matter, I don't think they're going to do. But again, it is a fair point, which is when you look at the way they're running their offense, it's very different than what they used to do. And you have 3 really good wide receivers. Why wouldn't you run more 3 wide receiver sets? But it's not broke. They're doing really well. Schultz looks fantastic. But again, I do think for the most part, it's something where, and I'm not getting rid of Dalton Schultz, by the way, to be clear. I think he's locked
right.
in
I don't
with
think
the
you
tight end
can.
one. Even with that, I actually think he's fine. But I really just don't expect this to affect either Lamb or Amari Cooper all that much. I just think you're going to see more 3 wide receiver sets and Gallup siphon off some of those other targets.
All right, Yates, let's go to you. So give me the rest of the wide receiver rundown for you and some other names that might be helpful to people out there in the waiver wire, whether it be a matchup play or maybe some rest of season appeal.
Yeah, some notable names here. So for me, at number 4, I have Darius Slayton. This is just because he's really the only healthy body, and they get the Kansas City Chiefs next week. So I'm looking at Darius Slayton as someone who I can plug in there as a flex play with a little. He does get a bump up if we do see Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay, the entire Giants offense miss again. So Darius Slayton there at number 4, and then Rashod Bateman at number 5 for me for a lot of the reasons Dan mentioned. He just gets a little bit of a bump down. Scared me. Just because your audio spiked or something like that scared the
I got
crap
so
out of me.
upset. I'm so sorry.
Rashod Bateman at number 5 for me. Just because, again, like he's absolutely worth adding, but it all depends on what you need. Do you need someone this week? Then you can play Laviska Shenault, Gallup, Gage, Slayton over him. Otherwise, Bateman, I've been talking about Bateman for the last 4 weeks.
Right.
Pick him up.
Hence the excited Mickey Mouse voice from me.
I can't believe you want to leave him that
First of all,
alone.
by the way, do we know that Gallup is coming back this week? Is that confirmed?
He said he was expected to, or Mike McCarthy said he was expected to practice in week 8 or leading up to week 8.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's a good point, too. Expected to practice and expected to play. Not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
Despite the bye, I still would keep Bateman at 3, again, me personally, because I think he's the best of rest of season play. And you could even make an argument, maybe even 2, in the full point PPR, because Gallup from week to week could be a guy that disappears. That's definitely the situation there. For the rest of mine, I've got Will Fuller at 4 sitting around there too. Theoretically, he's supposed to come back. I hate the matchup against Buffalo. This is more of a long-term play.
There's already a report, Joe. There's already a report. He's out this week. He's
is he?
This week. And it actually came up just in between our podcast.
Oh,
right
good.
Good.
Well, here's the thing. In the 3rd time that we start the show, I will say this about Will Fuller. I would add him for $1 anyway.
Yes.
You know why? Just in the off chance, the 10 to 15% chance that Deshaun Watson becomes a Miami Dolphin, that's enough to me to add him for $1 and just sit and wait. And look, the rest of these names, Crowder, Slayton, Gage, these are all names. To me, they're all the same guy. These are the guys that Yates was talking about here. Slayton and Crowder, you can flip-flop if you like. The matchup's probably better for Slayton against Kansas City, as Yates was pointing out. But also, we don't know. Is Tonyan going to be back? Is Galladay going to be back? Like, where are we with those guys? Unless they're all been declared too in the time that we've done this for the 5th time. I'm not sure. But Dan Harris, take me through the rest of your wide receiver board and maybe some other deep names that people should be looking to add in some deeper leagues.
It's not pretty. I mean, it really isn't. Like, I'm adding Rashod Bateman to number 1 personally, and then Gallup and Laviska Shenault. Again, I like Shenault. It was good to see him get the targets, but at some point, I'm going to need to see him do something with the targets before getting excited. Actually, guys, number 4 for me, this is a big drop, okay? So I don't really care about most of these guys. It was Will Fuller, by the way, Joe, before I did see him declared out as well. Because, by the way, I don't even think you need Watson. Tua, as much as, like, he's being criticized, stuff like that, I mean, look what Tua's done for...
Tua, he's been okay.
He's been made mistakes, but I could say that I know DeVante Parker has been out and everything like that, but obviously Jalen Waddle has, become sort of a very reliable fantasy option.
Him and
right
Mike
now.
Gesicki are
Mike
stars right now.
He has opened up that offense much more to the point where I think whenever Will Fuller gets back, he will probably be somebody who fantasy managers might be able to start as a flex. A guy, Russell Gage is up there too. Number 4 for me is actually a guy who has very little long-term value. But Alan Lazard, because of the fact that they play on Thursday, I don't expect MVS to be able to come back yet for this. And he scored touchdowns in 2 straight games. He's a guy who, in a game where the Packers are going to need to put up points against Arizona on a short week where defenses are usually a little banged up and tired, he's a guy who I think you can probably get away with, as Yates and I would say, as a flex this week. So he's somebody who I might look at number 4. Then Gage, again, who's a guy who... Calvin Ridley got targets, but he doesn't look that explosive right now. And Gage obviously got the ball that fell into his arms, by the way. It just literally fell out of the sky. And after that is Will Fuller. There are no deep names, Joe. Like Darius Slayton, it's fine. Jamison Crowder is fine. I'm not adding Khalif Raymond, or anything like that.
I think Kendrick Bourne has some appeal too in the deeper leagues right now. He's floating out there.
He's at 16 for me. So,
come on, you have about Jamal Agnew ahead of him. I mean, come on.
What's that?
I don't know, man. How many guys have put up back-to-back 14-point weeks in half PPR? Kendrick Bourne has. I'm just saying.
Bourne got there because he threw a touchdown.
I don't care. He's in the offense.
Very, very fluky, 70-yard pass play touchdown
right.
the week
before. The safety.
We can all say it should, it could, it wouldn't, but again, touching the football is touching the football.
And you're right, Joe. Plan? You're talking about Jamal Agnew as somebody to be like, oh, are you really ranking? I have Jamal Agnew past Bourne, Joe, so I'm with you there. So don't worry about that.
Agnew at 13. I think if you are absolutely desperate, you can pick up Jamal Agnew, and I hate myself.
I'm glad that we
decided at 14. So there you go.
I'm so thankful that we decided to take the worst week of waiver wire and do it several times today. This has really been my favorite.
By the 4th time, though, we're really going to
this show's going to be great 4th time around.
It's going to be week 9 ads by the time we're doing it.
KJ Osborn, guys. Osborn is someone that I think we should consider because before the bye week for Minnesota, he put up a big performance, and they're going up against Dallas this week. We know that they're going to have to throw. In the games where we know that Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the ball a ton, I think that we can confidently look KJ Osborn's way as a flex option with upside. So he's definitely someone that you can consider. I've got him at 6.
He was one of my favorite ads last week.
Remove the word confidently from that, buddy. There's no way you can confidently.
I wouldn't say confident, but he's somebody you can at least consider. You could consider him as a flex.
Yates said the word confidently. I'm taking it out.
I will confidently play KJ Osborn as a flex in deep leagues.
You will confidently lose to me, but regardless, how that
I beat you this week, by the way.
You stop.
Wait a minute. Do you guys play each other this week in the league?
We didn't play each other. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
No, we're not even in the same
league.
FantasyPros league.
That's one of the other Dans. You're confusing.
Dynasty League, Daniel.
Dynasty League.
I am looking at our matchup right here.
Are you looking at the fact that I started Dwayne Eskridge, who's not even going to play because I couldn't start anybody on a bye? That is
doesn't matter. I'm looking at the fact that I put up 165 points on you and you have 73. So
I'm sure that is what the vast majority of our listeners want to hear about. But I will throw out another name for you, and it is Tre'Quan Smith, who is apparently going to return tonight. We think, right? He's going to be able to suit up. At least that. Look, they play the Bucks next week, right? So if that, that's a team that non-Justin Fields quarterbacks can usually pass on. And so I think that for the most part, if he has a decent game, if he plays a ton of snaps. Remember, this was a guy we were all falling all over each other for, at least initially when this first happened. At least I was. And so he's somebody who, again, we've got Michael Thomas a few weeks away now at this point. Deep name, go for it.
All right, let's move on from the wide receivers and let's talk about the quarterbacks here, whether it be streaming or rest of season ad. Maybe somebody who just had Sam Darnold benched. Oh, poor Sam Darnold. Again, I'll say it once, I'll say it twice. Bad weekend for Jets quarterbacks, past, present, and future.
Yes.
But poor Sam Darnold.
The thing is that P.J. Walker did nothing with his opportunity.
Right. That is also true. But,
3 for 14.
But since we're talking about quarterbacks, again, I'm going to put this out there. If Deshaun Watson's floating around your waiver wire, this is the week to add him. Because if he does get dealt, there's every indication that when he gets moved, he is going to play. This is the opportunity. The NFL is not going to step in and change that. Now, if he doesn't get dealt, then he's just going to sit there and rot away for the year with the Houston Texans, and that's going to be it. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is going to be back at practice this week, too.
Yes.
So I think it was very convenient that this all kind of came to fruition at the right time for the Houston Texans. But I know Trevor Lawrence is another name out there. You know, he has some appeal theoretically, but once again, it's on the road. Don't love the Urban Meyer game plans, even though Trevor Lawrence has looked a little better, I think, the last couple weeks against Seattle. It's a good matchup theoretically, but don't love it on the road. Deshaun is the guy for me. You take your flyer. And the best part is, if he doesn't get dealt, next week you can go ahead and drop him after the deadline on Tuesday. Yates, is there another quarterback for you, or maybe it's Deshaun for you also, that you feel like adding to a roster right now in Week 8?
It depends on what I need, obviously, but at the top of the list for me is Daniel Jones. And honestly, I don't think that I have to see Kadarius Toney come back or Sterling Shepard come back.
You saw enough with that amazing Odell Beckham-like catch. That was enough for you.
Yeah, that was enough. It's up against Kansas City. And Kansas City is going nowhere fast. And this is the defense that you play opposing quarterbacks. So as far as a streamer next week, it's Daniel Jones. And honestly, I'm probably going to have him as a top 15 option. And if we get word that Sterling Shepard is going to play, Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, if these guys start to return to the lineup, then Jones might move into my top 10.
All right, Dan Harris, quarterback position for you. Somebody rest of season or maybe just this week that has some appeal?
No, the only one who you can add or that you should add in a non-Superflex league is Deshaun Watson. And again, I said it to start, so I'll go down with the ship in that I do not expect Deshaun Watson to play this year. I know all the reports are not only that he will be traded, but that the team that trades for him is going to start him, and that the NFL is not going to step in. I continue to maintain that the NFL probably will want to avoid a PR headache and something will come at the last second. But regardless, you have to add him because it sounds like he probably is going to get traded and the team is going to try to start him. So he's the only one. If I am looking for next week, I agree with Yates that I probably will have Daniel Jones the highest in my rankings. But again, we're at a point where Derek Carr is on a bye, fine. Lamar Jackson's on a bye. That's an obvious starter. But we are deep at starting quarterback right now, guys. Like, this is where we are. We probably got 13 guys in any normal week who are guaranteed locked-in starters, or if you consider Ryan Tannehill that way, and also
I think you can
Kirk
again.
Cousins
I think you can
stuff.
consider Tannehill yet again as a starter.
Yeah,
I think we're back there.
I think so too. I think so too.
And you mentioned the Chiefs. Yates, you ain't wrong. I mean, here we are again, and the Super Bowl hangover. And I found the tweet from last year when I talked about it. I thought that Patrick Mahomes might be invincible to this because if you look in the last 10 plus years or so, it's not been good. The team that loses the Super Bowl the next year, especially the quarterback, struggles. 2016, Cam Newton Panthers win 6 games. He goes from 35 touchdowns to 19 touchdowns in the next year after they lost. Matt Ryan, after the incredible 25-point deficit that they gave back to, 25-point lead that they gave back to the Patriots. Matt Ryan, 20 touchdowns, his lowest total since his rookie season, the following season. Jared Goff in 2019 fell from 32 touchdowns to 22 touchdowns. Jimmy Garoppolo, we all know the end of that story. And now, here we go, another one. The only guys that have bucked the trend are Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. That's it, if you go back and look. So, Super Bowl hangover, perhaps a real thing. Maybe just the Chiefs believing a little bit too much of their press clippings, or maybe just the Chiefs not balancing the offense enough. Maybe that's where we're at. Dan Harris, tight ends this week. Is there one in particular or a few that you might think are worthy of a Dan Harris roster spot?
No. But if you have to, if you are in desperate need, this is another thing, Yates, where I think, we've probably got enough guys out there that every week you can kind of get away with and you can stream for the most part. And the guys widely available on the wire are not there. I guess CJ Uzomah, just because of the fact that he's apparently can survive despite the fact that he gets very few targets out there. I don't want Robert Tonyan. I will not buy into Robert Tonyan. You cannot make me buy into Robert Tonyan. And Evan Ingram did get targets, but also did little. And Mo Alie-Cox also doesn't get targets, but somehow produces. So realistically, I do not want to start any of these guys. I will probably not rank any of these guys as starters next week. But if I have to pick one, I guess it's Uzomah, and then I just kind of whatever.
Well, Uzomah is interesting because he's either tight end 1 or tight end 25 the last couple weeks. Right. And I'm not exaggerating. It's not being flippant.
Yeah.
It's literally what he's been. It is against the Jets, though, this week, Yates. So is Uzomah tempting to you?
I literally have all these guys. There's 6 options that we can talk about. It's Robert Tonyan, Dan Arnold, Evan Ingram, Mo Alie-Cox, CJ Uzomah, Tyler Conklin. All 6 of them. I don't care what order they're in. Like, they are all one of these guys that I will probably have in my weekly rankings, these guys from 15 to 21. And I will have them all right next to one another. So as far as next week. So I think Robert Tonyan, I'm going to put at number 1 just because this is the most high-powered offense out of the group in Green Bay, and there is the possibility that this turns into something moving forward. But with that being said, I don't want to pick up Robert Tonyan because I don't want to. He's either had 2 fantasy points, or he's scored a touchdown and has finished as a top 5 option. Like, he's had 5 games with 2 or fewer fantasy points so far this year. It's ridiculous.
If you're going to spend money on him, just tweet at Andrew Erickson _ and
Right.
he will yell at you and stop you
I thought
from doing
about
that.
as soon as I
That's
saw
all I could think about when he scored.
Like, Andrew.
He's a worse version of CJ Uzomah. I mean, there you go.
Well, but the thing with Uzomah is, we have to respect anybody in an offense that, as a tight end, could put up a tight end one day. And it's funny because a couple weeks ago, we all rolled our eyes and went, well, there's a crazy, what was a Thursday night game, right? What do you think when he did it? Oh, it's a crazy Thursday night game. Don't pay attention to it. And then he went back to being nothing. And then this week he did it again against Baltimore. And if you're watching that game, you see that defenses now, everybody's just going to Jamar Chase. And what's happening is that kid, Uzomah, is just open in the seam. He's just open there. Like, it's so easy to filter him the football. So there's more opportunity. So although you guys are right, they all pretty much are the same guy theoretically, Uzomah is interesting because of what's happening with his team, what's happening this particular week against the Jets, all of that kind of coming around where there's more upside with him than the others, and they all have the same downside, I guess.
Just to be clear, with Mike White starting, I mean, they might just choose to run Joe Mixon 45 times and win by 35 points and not have to throw the ball at all, let alone to, CJ Uzomah. I just look forward to continually telling everybody to not start Mo Alie-Cox and for him to get 3 targets and score 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Every time. Doesn't matter. Good for you for busting the way Yates and I do projections, but whatever. It's fine.
Efficiency. Thy name is Mo Ali. All right, let's talk about, dare I say, the top 5 for each of you guys going forward here this week. Dan Harris, why don't you kick us off here with your top 5 favorite waiver wire ads?
So I'm going with Gainwell at number 1. As I said, I'm willing to spend big. Rashod Bateman is my number 2, followed by Michael Gallup and Laviska Shenault. And then I will pick up, again, as of Monday right now, Rashaad Penny, just in the hopes that it turns into something. So not the best week for sure, but at least the top receivers and Gainwell can help you out.
All right. Yates, how about you? Your top 5?
Yep, at number 1, I'm going Kenneth Gainwell. Number 2 for me is Laviska Shenault. And then number 3 is Michael Gallup. Definitely do think he is worth adding. Number 4 is Daniel Jones, just based on if you need a streaming option for next week. And then number 5 is Boston Scott as of right now. I don't know exactly what we're going to see here with this offense and the plan, but he's worth adding if you are in need at the running back position.
All right, for me, it's Kenneth Gainwell, and then no more ads. Just that's it. Just add Kenneth Gainwell. But no, seriously, if I had to add a couple other people, it's Shenault, it's Gallup, it's Bateman, and I would be looking at Trevor Lawrence too, because I do think as the season goes on, Trevor Lawrence is a player that could potentially help you if you're somebody still that doesn't love your quarterback situation, or you've been playing Jalen Hurts and it's been great for fantasy, but the Eagles have 2 wins and you're getting a little gun shy about Jalen Hurts the rest of the season and what's going to happen there potentially. Yeah, I think you start hedging around a little bit with some of those other quarterbacks, Lawrence being one of them. Or if you had picked up Sam Darnold in a 14-team league and things are going really well for you, and now all of a sudden they're not after the first 3 weeks of the season, well, there's another guy too, I think, in Lawrence, who could potentially be available after last week with that bye. Let's talk defense. This is a no-brainer for me. I'm going back to that Cincinnati well. Once again, between the IDP show and this show, I don't know how many times between Gainwell and Bateman and the Bengals defense, I'm the broken record, but go pick up the Bengals defense. Mike White. There you go. I mean, geez, did they get this guy in like a Madden create a player thing? Mike White? This can't be real. But it is. And the Cincinnati Bengals, defensively, they don't have stars. There's no Garretts. There's no, Aaron Donald. There's none of those guys. It's Sam Hubbard playing well. It's Bates playing well, with Von Bell playing well. All those guys are just playing good football. They're playing together. The game plan's good. The scheme's good. The execution's good. If they give up a big play, they don't fold. And you saw it going back to last year, and a lot of people didn't because they stopped watching or paying attention to the Bengals when Joe Mixon wasn't playing and Joe Burrow wasn't playing. And they went up there and they shocked the world and beat the Steelers. And after that, defensively, they were a much better team. And in the offseason, they made a couple moves. I'm telling you, Bengals defense is no joke. Yates, you got a streaming defense this week you like?
Yeah, who's the team that just held Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense to 17 points and now gets to take on the Jets and Mike White?
That's
the Bengals. That would be the Cincinnati Bengals defense. Yes, there's actually several options here this week that I'm actually like last week. I've been playing the streaming defense game all year. Last week, I was like, well, I don't have anyone to turn to because one bye weeks and it was just terrible. This week, there are several options that I feel comfortable rolling with as far as the defense position, the DST. So Cincinnati Bengals for me, and then Los Angeles Chargers right behind them there at number 2.
All right, Dan Harris, streaming defense for you this week.
It's very obviously the Bengals. There is no way around it, to the point where I'm not kidding. Like, if I am in a difficult position, I am willing to burn my number one waiver claim on the Cincinnati Bengals defense, because I think it's going to be glorious against Mr. White over there. But there are a couple other names, as he had said, like Washington. As disappointing as they have been, they still get pressure on the quarterback, at least at an okay rate. And all I can think of when I see Teddy Bridgewater playing is just his feet constantly dancing, looking for somebody to throw the ball to and having no idea what to do. So there are a few different decent options out there. But the Bengals are number one with a bullet.
All right, Dan, since you made us do this, you start with kicker this week.
Haha. Kickers matter, okay? I don't understand why. And I will say that I have not been able to continue my very good ranking of kickers this year. I'm struggling with it, but it's fine. For me, I will go with Jason Myers because from Seattle, because again, they're up against Jacksonville. It should be a game where, Seattle can still move the ball even with Geno Smith. It shouldn't be a crazy high-scoring game. A lot of moving the ball without converting it into touchdowns, so there are going to be a lot of field goal opportunities in that game. So I will go with Myers, and other than that, it's also Chase McClaughlin, and Nick Chubb is supposed to come back, so I think that it's something where he's going to be able to most likely the Cleveland against Pittsburgh, two kind of defensive-minded teams, necessarily a lot of field goal opportunities. So those are the two guys who I would target.
I think only 3 of the 12 leagues I'm in this year have a kicker, so it's been a good year. That's a win, I think.
All right, I'm just going to say, everybody hates the kicker because why? Because, oh, God, when a kicker gets 0 points, you're like, this is
because
so
when
stupid.
Robbie Gould goes down in pregame warm-ups and I don't know about it, and I have him in my starting lineup, and I have to...
That never happens with a non-kicker.
I don't want to have to worry about a kicker, Dan.
But see, that's fine. You don't have to worry about a random kicker going down. We also didn't know that Donovan Peoples-Jones was going to randomly get
salt
injured.
in my wound. Thank you very much.
Warm-ups for that. I'm just saying, like, I get the unpredictability of kickers. Most fantasy positions are unpredictable, okay? Deal with it. I love kickers, all kickers. I want to be in an only kicker league, so there you go.
There you go.
Like my nightmare.
Oh, goodness.
This is my nightmare.
Jason Myers was my addition, and I take back everything I said. I do like the kicker segment now because that was salty.
Yes.
That was excellent.
I just have to pop on for it.
Here's what you do. You pop on just for the kicker, and then you pop off the show. Never to be seen again. Yates, do you have a kicker that you'd like to add this week?
It's Chase McClaughlin, and it's for a lot of the same reasons that Dan mentioned. It's a divisional battle. I think they're going to keep this close. Not a lot of touchdowns here, a lot of field goal opportunities.
All right, let's play a little game here, a little rapid-fire keeper drop. Let's start with Robby Anderson, 70% rostered in most leagues.
Oh, going in 70% rostered.
He's still 70% rostered in CBS leagues, and before going into yesterday's game, he had 30 targets. Do you want to guess before going into yesterday's game, of those 30 targets, how many he caught? You want
13.
To take a guess? No, lower, Bob. 10.
13.
10 of the 30 targets heading into yesterday's game. And obviously, the 5-3 score for the first half of that game didn't really help a whole lot.
The creativity of Twitter, by the way, people were tweeting out that box score saying, I love playoff baseball.
Playoff baseball. I saw that one. But yeah, is it time to just drop Robby Anderson here, Dan? Or are you holding out for one more week to see if there's a quarterback acquisition in Carolina?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's fine. You want to wait to see if Watson?
You want to wait one more week, or you want to drop?
You gotta wait one more week.
All right. It's a fair point. Given that they're obviously looking, and if they add Watson and if he plays, that obviously boosts the stock of Robby Anderson. But as soon as we find out that Watson is not traded, you
Tuesday
cut,
at 4:01.
That moment,
right.
You cut Robby Anderson off your fantasy team.
Remind me at 4:01 on Tuesday.
It set the reminder in the iPhone. It is done.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, would you drop Robby Anderson for Rashod Bateman?
10 times out of 10.
Even on the bye this week?
Even on the bye this week,
just want to
go
ask.
for it. I'm fine. And again, I think it's fair if you want to hold Robby to see if there's a trade for Deshaun Watson. But really, no, I want Rashod Bateman on my roster way more than Robby Anderson.
All right. The New England Patriots are going to be facing the Chargers next week. So I'm just going to ask this question. Rhamondre Stevenson, 57% rostered. Do you want to keep him or drop him? Yates, we'll start with you.
Let's drop him. I talked about. I saw the tweet come through on Sunday morning with Rhamondre Stevenson inactive, and I thought about tweeting out looks like my strategy of just avoiding the New England Patriots backfield every single year is paying off.
I don't know. Harris has been pretty good.
It's Damian Harris. Listen, it's Damian Harris, and it's no one else in this backfield.
But it's most backfields. It's Austin Eckler and nobody else, really. I mean, it's only a couple backfields where somebody else, either that guy gets hurt or there's a legitimate Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams situation. But Damian Harris has been as advertised for all the haters out there of the Damian Harris.
He is wearing his Patriots windbreaker right now, just so you can tell. Or whatever.
There it is. You can't really see it in the shot that Chris does. I have to pull it up way higher, but that's okay. Dan Harris, Rhamondre Stevenson. I mean, it's not like the realm of possibility doesn't exist where he could go and have 15 fantasy points next week against the Chargers, because you and I both know that's distinctly possible.
Absolutely, but he'll be doing it on my waiver wire because I do not care about rostering him whatsoever. You can cut him.
DeVante Parker, 55% roster. Dan Harris, what do you want to do with Parker? Frustrating couple weeks here for him.
I'd really like to hold him if I can. I think that Parker had, started. He was getting targeted relatively consistently before he was injured. Tua has made that offense better. There could be Watson. Parker is a guy who I'm trying to hold if I can.
All right. How about you, Yates? DeVante Parker, you want to keep or drop?
Depends on what I need. If I need an option for this next week and I can't afford to hold Parker, I'm fine dropping him. But there's only for a few options. Like the Laviska Shenault, I'd be fine doing that. But outside of that, I mean, maybe Michael Gallup. But otherwise, I would prefer to hold him as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair, by the way. I do prefer Rashod Bateman and Michael Gallup to holding DeVante Parker. So if that's the worst guy on my roster, I have to make that swap, I would make that swap.
I would agree. Sony Michel, 51% rostered. Yates, what do you want to do with Sony Michel here?
I still think that he's worth holding on to because he has high-end insurance. He's a high-end insurance policy for Darrell Henderson. But outside of that, I mean, unless you need an option, then you just hold on to Sony Michel. But if you need someone, then you can drop him.
Dan, how about you? You like the high-end insurance?
Yeah, I'm doing whatever I can to hold on to Sony Michel because if you have a guy who's on your roster who, with an injury in front of him, to a guy who hasn't quite avoided injury his entire career, would be a borderline RB1 most likely in half PPR leagues, maybe a high-end RB2, you have to hold that guy. So I'm holding Michel if I can. All
right, Nyheim Hines rostered in just 49% of leagues. Dan Harris, what are you going to do with Nyheim Hines?
The fact that Nyheim Hines is rostered in 49% of leagues and Kenneth Gainwell is under 25% means we have failed as fantasy analysts. I'm dropping Nyheim Hines as fast as I possibly can do it. Get him off my roster.
What's this we? I mean, Kenneth Gainwell we've been talking about since week 1. We've been pounding the table.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm saying.
What do I have to do? I have to go to people's houses and then get on their phone
actually.
and
don't do that.
Open the apps and say, add this guy. That'd be a fun commercial for Fantasy Pros, just like one of us showing up at somebody's house, taking their phone and adding someone to their team. There you go. That's how my playbook really works. Kyle Yates shows up at your house and just steals your phone and just goes through all the apps and makes sure he adds all the right players for you. What feature is that? What subscription level do you have to get to for Fantasy Pros, Dan, where Yates shows up at your house and does that?
We're working on it. Well, I'll talk to the dev team.
Okay, good. Let me know. Nyheim Hines, how about for you here, Kyle Yates?
No, he's not worth rostering.
He's not worth rostering. Okay. Is Jonathan Taylor, by the way, I'm going to ask this question, is he the number 2 running back for you rest of season? Because I think you can make the argument with the schedule he's got coming up, the usage, the way Carson Wentz has been playing better. I mean, this was a tough weather situation. He played pretty respectably in that game, all things considered. I don't know. I'm looking around here after Derrick Henry for who's the true number 2. Maybe it's Elliott. Maybe it's Eckler. But maybe it's Jonathan Taylor. Yates, got any feelings about that?
I still have Jonathan Taylor at 7 in my rest of season running back rankings. So I've still got 7 guys like Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Zeke, Eckler, Najee Harris all above him. But that's not to take anything away from what he's doing. He's playing incredibly well. But I still have more confidence in some of these other guys over Jonathan Taylor.
That number 2 conversation is very interesting, Dan Harris. Do you have any thoughts about that? Because it's time we start thinking of who's after Derrick Henry realistically, between the injuries, between usage, between everything that's been going on this year.
Yeah, I think that if bye weeks weren't considered at all, I feel like I could have Taylor maybe as high as 3. I think I'd still have him behind Cook. But again, when I do my rest of season rankings, and again, this factors into the trade value for everybody who yells at me and stuff like that, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Ezekiel Elliott are now all past their buys. So, and Jonathan Taylor is not. That's a huge deal. You get 1 extra game from all the rest of them. So going forward, I, like Yates, unfortunately to agree with him, have Taylor at 7. But realistically, Joe, I do think I'd probably still have Cook ahead of him. But other than that, all things being equal, absent buys, he'd probably be 3 for me.
That conversation is closer in Dynasty.
We'll
bring that. Jonathan Taylor, number 2. in Dynasty.
That is also very fair. All right, don't forget, everybody, head over to fantasypros.com/contest to get involved in that Justin Jefferson helmet and get your 3x entry when you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros and click that little notifications bell when you do, so you know when all the amazing content drops, not just the podcast videos, but also the live streams as well, and all the other videos we got going on. So much great content. And go ahead and use that waiver wire assistant as well, fantasypros.com/myplaybook. That's where you get the waiver wire assistant to help you figure out exactly who to add to your team and for how much you want to spend. And don't forget about TickPick as well. It's time to go back into the stadiums, everybody. 5 huge in-season ticket packages for 2022 are going to be available, but you got to head over to tickpick.com/pros to get involved. Again, that's tickpick.com/pros. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Kyle Yates and Dan Harris, I'm Joey P. We will see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.